Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to give a quick update in regards to our potential winter storm tomorrow. Right now, we do have those winter weather advisories across parts of Wisconsin. We don't see anything across Minnesota right now. They're waiting until likely tomorrow morning or early tomorrow at some point before they issue any sort of winter weather advisories in parts of Minnesota, just due to the fact that there's two possible tracks with this storm. I'll get into that in just a little bit of what we can be seeing with those two tracks. But they're going to wait and see as that system starts to develop early in the morning, kind of where they're expecting that snow to fall. I'm guessing most likely portions of the Twin Cities will be put into a winter weather advisory, and a good chunk of southern Minnesota as well will also likely get put into a winter weather advisory. And we might even see a winter storm warning for parts of central Wisconsin and western Wisconsin, like Eau Claire, maybe down towards Red Wing, and maybe even towards Rochester, depending on what the models end up showing us tomorrow morning. So in terms of snowfall from the National Weather Service, St. Cloud looking at 2 to 4 inches just north of the Twin Cities and basically along a line along I-35 and eastward, somewhere between about 3 to 5 inches, 3 to 6 inches, and you got to go down into parts of west central Wisconsin before you see right around that 4 to 8 inch mark. So it should be a fairly heavy snow if you go far enough east, but from basically the Twin Cities on westward, I think that most likely we're going to see somewhere between 1 to 3 inches. Now, if we do end up getting what some of the models are pointing at, we could see around 4 inches, maybe even 5 here in St. Cloud, but I think the more likely scenario is somewhere between about 2 to 3 inches for majority of us here. Twin Cities, though, I think you might need to bump those numbers up just based on what we've seen across the majority of the day for the models. I think 3 to 5, maybe even 3 to 6 is looking a little bit more likely there across at least the Twin Cities metro. And just a better look at overall where the storm is impacting it's a majority of Minnesota, actually. Just not a whole lot of snow in regards to much of Minnesota. It's basically centered around far southern Minnesota and then up into much of Wisconsin. So here's what we're expecting in terms of snow. So the snow is going to start sometime in the early afternoon tomorrow. I'm thinking somewhere between about noon and about 2 or 3 o'clock looks to be that start time. This is at 3 o'clock, so that's already showing a wide swath of snow. So I think somewhere between there looks to be a fairly good starting point for our snow. And it's going to be pretty heavy when it first starts. And we can see that heavy snow is going to continue to spread across the Twin Cities metro right around that rush hour time. So it's going to be a very messy one out there. And even up in St. Cloud, it'll still be very messy out there. So make sure we're taking it very slow. Anyone, I know if you have Valentine's Day plans, just add in a little bit of extra time because it's going to be pretty gross out there, and just things are going to take a little bit slow. We know how it is in Minnesota. We've been through plenty of these, so just make sure that we're being safe out there. And that system will continue to see snow across a fair bit of Minnesota before things will wrap up as we head into our early morning hours on Saturday, and things should clear out for much of our day on Saturday. We could see a little bit of snow return late Saturday into Sunday morning. It's not looking super likely at this point. This model does have it, but majority of them don't, and then that would maybe bring around another inch at most for parts of Minnesota, but once again, I don't think that's very likely. So that model that I just showed in terms of potential radar, or at least what we could see for snow, this is what it's outputting in terms of snowfall. It has a little bit tendency to overdo snowstorms, and I think once again it's also most likely doing this here. It shows somewhere about 5 to 6, almost 7 inches of snow across St. Cloud, and then another almost 7 inches into the Twin Cities. I think this portion of the storm might be fairly close, 4 to 8 inches across southern Minnesota into Wisconsin, but I think these numbers might need to get tamed down a little bit. I think that's a little bit too high across central Minnesota, but I do notice a trend here with another model. This is the NAM 3K, so a little bit of a better resolution model. And with these models that I'm showing, these kind of models are meant more for convective things like storms, not as much of snowstorms. So they're not the greatest in terms of measuring snow, but they do give you a decent idea of what we can expect. But like I said, sometimes they tend to overdo it because they don't take certain things into account. But this one also does show right around 4 to 6 inches of snow across St. Cloud, another 5 to 7 inches of snow across the heart of the Twin Cities. And then sees that little band of snow once again across parts of Rochester and then into central Wisconsin of another 4 to 8 inches of snow. So it's a little interesting trend. I do think there'll be a heavy band of snow somewhere, but I wouldn't bank on any of these models right now, showing where that exact heavy band is going to be setting up. And this one is another convective model, it's the HRRR. This one has about 1.5 inches of snow for the St. Cloud region, and then across the Twin Cities Metro, right around 2, maybe to 3 inches, and then that swath of heavy snow across southern Minnesota. So they all kind of show a similar trend, just depends on how much snow we're going to get. And this model is a little bit more in terms of the system forming off to the east, which is what the other version of what the snowstorm could do if it forms off to the east farther. Looks like it'd form right around I-35. That means that we'd see much less snow across central Minnesota, and that'd be mostly focused on maybe the Twin Cities Metro and then into Wisconsin. That would be that primary zone. So then that's not the only model. This is the European model, which shows a little less detail. It's a little bit of a wider range model, but this once again also shows right around that 1.5 inches, maybe even 2 inches in St. Cloud, about 2 to 3 inches in the Twin Cities, and then that swath of snow. So this is our other scenario where if it would form about I-35. And then the GFS, which has been, I think, looks like probably our most accurate model here with what I'm expecting, would be right around that 2 to 3, maybe even 4 inches here across St. Cloud. I think it might still be a little high in terms of snowfall, but I think a fairly decent swath of somewhere about 2 to 4 inches across much of central Minnesota, and that higher amount of snow across southern Minnesota looks very likely. So regardless, we're going to definitely see some snow tomorrow. Make sure that if you're going to be out, Valentine's Day plans, take it slow. Things are going to get compacted onto the road very quickly with heavy snow. It's not going to have time for plows to clear anything because it'll just be falling too heavy and there'll be too much traffic. So take it slow, add extra time, check the road conditions before you go. If you need, even don't be afraid to cancel plans, postpone it for Saturday. I know that I'd rather be spending the night at home all snuggled up, be safe, versus spending the night in the hospital, the ER, because you decided to drive out there for Valentine's Day. It's just not worth it. So if you need to, cancel any plans that need be. I'll have another update tomorrow morning over with Grant City Weather. That'll be posted about 10 o'clock, and we should have a fairly decent idea of what kind of we're expecting, either that first mode where it's much of central Minnesota getting the snow, or if it's going to be forming off to our east. So we'll have a better idea at that point. Otherwise, stay safe, everyone. Have a great Valentine's Day, and I'll stay tuned for more updates.